So Caitlin Clark yesterday played against Diana Taurasi, the greatest of all time, and had, I'm not going to say arguably her best game. Do you think she's had better games? But the way that the team clicked in a way that I haven't seen them click before. They look good. And this is a team that has looked pretty bad this year. They look good. It's the first time I think they've looked good against a good team since the second time they played. It was either the second time they played the Sun or the first time they played the Storm. They have been destroyed by good teams time after time again, and they obviously fought back to win yesterday. Before we get on to it though, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to hit 15.4k by the end of today. We are currently 18 off. If we could do that, that would be absolutely incredible. But if you want to listen right here as to what the coach says, and again, like Nate Tibbetts is a good coach, an assistant coach in the NBA for 5 or 6 years. He is a high level basketball coach. He really is. So let's have a look at what he said. And this is, by the way, before the game, saying that we're going to have a lot of people guard Caitlin. There's times where we're going to try force Caitlin to her right. There's going to be times we blitz. You're going to see some zone. We're going to mix it up. And what they mixed up, how they mixed it up was they put a point guard on Leah Boston. They were willing to allow an all-star center. They were so scared of Caitlin Clark. They were willing to allow an all-star center to guard, to be guarded by a 5'10" point guard so that they could switch screens easier. They had to hide Brittany Griner. They had to hide one of the best rim protecting bigs in the league. They had to hide her on defense because they were so scared of what Caitlin Clark could do. And basically at the end of the game, you could hear by some of the stuff that he was saying. And also the fact is he literally sacrificed the best scorer on the team, one of the best scorers in the league, in Kat Copper, to guard Caitlin Clark. And after the game, he essentially just admitted, well, yeah, we did what we could. We couldn't stop them. Basically admitted that what Caitlin Clark, when this team runs fast, and obviously the team going faster through Caitlin Clark, they're basically unstoppable. Which I've been saying from minute one, that because I saw it in spells against good teams. They looked really good in spells against the Liberty in the second time they played them. They looked really good in spells the second time they played the Storm. Or the first time they played the Storm. But when they run at teams, there's no team that can compete with this team running. There is not. When they go at that pace, no one can compete with them. The only way that a team can compete with them running is if obviously they get a bunch of scores and are able to slow them down.
Coach Kaw's defense was a big factor in this one in terms of limiting what Caitlin and the people were able to do. What was the choice in putting her on 22 today?
Yeah, I thought Ka did a really good job competing on the ball. Obviously, her presence coming off pick and roll puts you in a different situation just because of how far she can shoot it from. And I thought we did a good job for the most part. A couple transition threes, but she really competed on the ball.
So basically, again, talking about how they have to guard this pick and rolls in a specific way. And then after this, he talks about basically how it was the pace that lost it for them. They came out with a new pace in the second half.
To disrupt your play today, it seemed like in the second half, was it kind of a tale of two teams?
Yeah, they kind of took us out of our rhythm. We gave up 50 points in the second half. That's not a recipe for winning games. I thought they came out in the third quarter. They just played a little bit faster, and we did not.
And like 2 or 3 more times in this interview, he talks about how it was the pace and the Fever just playing faster, which I couldn't deal with. And also, he says later on in talking about Leah Boston, how they were willing to put a point guard in Leah Boston, and basically says, we got to just, it's in professional basketball, you got to just pick what you're willing to give up. You have to pick what you're willing to give up. And he's like, I don't know how much 17 was above Leah Boston's average, but we have to give up something, and that's what we chose to give up. They chose to, again, he had basically admitted that you cannot just guard Caitlin Clark like a normal player, and that's fine. You can't guard any superstar like they're a normal player. But also the fact that you are willing, what teams are willing to give up? Teams are willing to give up open threes. And also, shout out to the Phoenix Mercury, because this was the real grudge game. This was the game that everyone wanted to win. And straight away after the game, there was no all this celebrate, the tweets that the Chicago Sky put out after the game. Look, at the end of the day, it is what it is, but basically just gloating that they won a mid-off. Whereas the Phoenix Mercury, from one generation to the next, the game is in good hands. First time I see a tweet from this team that is not shady. Thank you for a fun game. It was a really fun game. And It was one of those games where I think everything was left on the floor. Even though a brawl nearly broke out, Griner pushed Aaliyah Boss in the face. Cunningham threw a blind elbow. It seemed like everything was just left on the floor in this game. But he's as good as admitted it. He tried everything. He tried everything to stop Caitlin Clark. And you've just got to pick your poison. Like, you've got to, if you're trying to stop Caitlin Clark, you've got to leave somebody else open. And that is what teams are now figuring. This is what the Fever should be figuring out. And this is why I've always said, if Christy Side's a competent coach, like, if you give this team to a good coach, they are instantly contenders. There is no player that has this type of gravity. There is no player that has the ability to score with the vision of Caitlin Clark. She is a mixture between Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, with a little bit of, like, with more flair than Sue Bird in her passing. Yeah, she's turnover prone. That happens. When a player tries to make something happen non-stop, you're going to get turnovers. At the same time, like saying, oh, she should maybe try to stop things from happening all the time. At the end of the day, maybe not. Like, that's telling Caitlin Clark not to be Caitlin Clark. You don't get, if you try to coach her out of attempting the spectacular, she's not going to do the spectacular, which is what people are there to see. And again, just like I've been saying, the coach alluded to it, and this is a really, really good coach. This is a guy who is an NBA assistant coach. He's one of the better coaches in this league. His first time really coaching women's basketball. But X's and O's of basketball, he's as good a coach as there is in this league. Like, he's so much better as far as the X's and O's goes than at Christie's sides. And he's even admitting, like, after the game, we tried everything on her. But we put Kat Copper on her. Copper did well. But the team just went and played faster with her orchestrating it. You can't stop them all. And that's why I'm so confident. I'm so confident this team's going to be good. Purely because you can't stop the pace. You just can't. Because we saw it at Iowa. We saw damn good college teams not being able to stop the pace. And these were Iowa teams that weren't particularly good. These were not, as far as individual players, they were not particularly good. They were good. Don't get it twisted. They were good. But they were Caitlin Clark and role players. And you suddenly put significantly better players, I think they're going to be nearly unstoppable. And he was as good as alluded to that. They were not willing to let Caitlin Clark go get hers, no matter how bad she was shooting. They were willing to let Kelsey Mitchell beat them. They were willing to let Aaliyah Boston beat them. They were literally willing to put, like, imagine in the NBA if teams were so scared. In fairness, this is like a Steph Curry situation. Teams were so scared of Steph Curry. The Cavs were so scared of Steph, they double team Steph at half court and let Kevin Durant go one-on-one. That's how scared they were of Steph. Imagine being so, like, let's just say a hypothetical where Embiid or Jokic played with Luka, I don't know. And you were so scared of Luka that you were willing to put the other team's point guard, or you were willing to put your point guard on Jokic and let Jokic go one-on-one the post every single time because you were that scared of Luka because you wanted to switch off the screens. That is the equivalent of that. She's nearly unstoppable. She is nearly unstoppable. And she's not unstoppable in the way of she's going to get 40 points. She's nearly unstoppable in the way of she's either going to score 20 or assist 20. And it's impossible. You can't stop both. And if you try to guard everybody and stop the passing, when they play at this up-tempo pace, you can't do that either. So they did what they could. They tried to stop her as a scorer. They tried to put Kat Copper on her. They switched Natasha Cloud onto her off every pick and roll. They didn't blitz because they were worried about the passing. Then they started blitzing and she was picking them apart as well. So she was nearly unstoppable. And this is a bad shooting game. Caitlin Clark on a bad shooting game. The other team's coach basically just said, yeah, we tried. He basically threw up his hand and was like, well, obviously in pro basketball, you learn from winning and losing and you can't be too down yourself because obviously they're playing again tonight. But like, he basically threw up his hands and just goes, we tried. We have to give up something. We tried. But yeah, what a game, what a player. And that is the first time where it's like, it's not even her dropping 30 against the Washington Mystics. If you just watch the whole game, it's like, you can just see the control she has of the game. You can see that she's playing at in her own head, she is playing at a different speed, a different level than even this league. Just like it was in Iowa, where it took a little bit of time for people to like get up to speed with her. And I'm not talking about running speed. I'm just talking about sharpness speed. Like Christy Wallace, those cuts don't happen earlier in the year. Kelsey Mitchell's starting to run more. Like she'll eventually catch the ball better because she's a scorer. Aaliyah Boston, she's not going to run up and lead the break, but she's trailing the break really well. Temmie's leading the break. So these players are now wired in. So the second Caitlin Clark gets the ball, we're gone. We're gone. And that is a near impossibility to stop, as was explained by what is one of the best coaches in this entire league.